Hey, Eagles fans, this is Mike Kaye from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No Huddle Show podcast, where we discuss anything and everything Philadelphia Eagles. You can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, bookmark that, and you can subscribe to our exclusive Eagles Insider text service, where we'll break news, give you insider observations, and provide in-depth analysis. Through Eagles Extra, you can send questions and comments directly to us, and we'll respond to your phone. Fridays, we do an exclusive noon Q&A for about an hour. It's a very fun feature, and it's exclusive to you, and you can ask as many questions as you'd like. With me today, as always, is my fellow Eagles beat reporter, Chris Franklin. Today, we're going to discuss what else? The Carson Wentz trade. Chris, how you doing today?
Not too bad at all, Mike. You know, we've been waiting for something to happen now for a few days now. It's almost like you get that sense of you kind of know what's actually happened now. You get that relief now. Hey, it's finally done, and things will be moving on from here. How about you, man? How you doing?
I'm well, man. I'm glad to get some sleep. Although last night I drank an energy drink too late because I was writing and I could not fall asleep at all last night, and I think I might have an ear infection. But other than that, I'm terrific. So let's get into the news, right? So Carson Wentz is going to Indy. The Eagles agreed with the Colts on a blockbuster trade that will send Wentz to the spot of the annual combine, which I love, by the way, for a 2021 third-round pick and a conditional 2022 second-round pick. Now, that second-round pick can become a first-round pick if one of two things happen. If he plays 70% of the snaps and the Colts make the playoffs, boom, first-round pick. If Carson Wentz just plays 75% of the snaps overall, boom, that becomes a first-round pick. So unless Carson Wentz has a major injury, as he has in two of his, I guess now 5 seasons. Actually, he hasn't played 75% of his snaps, and I believe, that'd be 2 of the seasons, and then actually he got a concussion in the playoffs. So, he's played throughout 2 seasons in a row. It's just a matter of, will injuries happen with him? And so I think Eagles fans do have some reason to root for Carson Wentz this year, which... You know what? I think a lot of the fan base will. I think while some have painted him as this ultimate villain, I do think the fan base does have a special place in their heart for Carson Wentz. They don't win a Super Bowl without him, in my opinion. He set Nick Foles up with the ultimate opportunity, and Nick Foles, cashed in. I think this is one of those things where, forever it's going to be a tough spot for Eagles fans to kind of put their minds around how 5 years later this has been what it is. But anyway, what did you think of the value, Chris?
Well, I thought it could have been a little bit better, but it didn't help that all the reports about the Bears withdrawing and the stuff the Bears weren't interested. I don't think that helped the Eagles with the leverage. I thought they could have waited a little bit longer. I know they had to wait. They had until the 3rd day of the league year to do that, to basically before they had to pay the roster bonus. But I think they could have waited maybe about a couple weeks or two, because I think you had teams like the 49ers who were still lurking around, that were possibly looking for a quarterback, even though they say, oh, we're looking for Jimmy G. Well, they've been linked to Deshaun Watson and a couple other guys, and we later know that the Denver Broncos were interested in Wentz. So I think you still could have gotten another team in there, and I think Chicago may have been jumped back in there at some point. So I thought they could have gotten a bona fide first round pick. I think they could have gotten that, even if it was 2022. I think they may have gotten it. But I mean, given for what the situation was, it wasn't bad. I just wish that they waited just a couple more weeks longer and held out, and they may have gotten something a little bit more on that one. I mean, do you think they got fair value for this?
I think they got fair value, but when you're evaluating a trade, I don't just evaluate the comings and goings. I've got to evaluate the entire picture here. It is an epic failure on a scale that we haven't seen in a very long time for the Eagles. Like, this is you've twice invested in this guy. You let the Super Bowl MVP go. Like, they've really chosen Carson Wentz 3 separate times and invested in him twice. And now you're trading a guy who, some still feel can be a top 10 quarterback. I don't agree with that. I think he's definitely can become a top 15 guy again, a top 12 guy. I don't know if he's ever going to be in the conversation. Like, people are talking about like MVP talks. Like, what? I don't get it. But what I will say is I think that Carson Wentz still has a lot of upside. I do think he's redeemable. But I also think when you look at this trade, Carson wasn't going to be successful here anymore. He wasn't. Like, that's a fact. It just wasn't going to work. So they had to get what they could for him. Look, I did a lot of reporting on this trade. Chicago was interested, but ultimately I think the vibe, whether Carson vocalized it or not, was that Indy was the belle of the ball for him, and Chicago just really was a last resort. And if you're trading for a guy and going to pay him $24 million a year, you don't want to be that last resort. It's like when you're in a relationship, you never want to be somebody's second choice. And so I think the Bears were smart to not press even further. I think when you look at the Colts situation, it's perfect for Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz won this trade. I can't think of a better spot for him to be in, on top of the Colts not having to give up a first or second round pick this year so they can continue to build around him. On top of that, they have tons of cap space that they can continue to build around Carson Wentz. So if Carson Wentz is the type of player where you really need to have the perfect situation for him, boom, perfect situation. So not to mention, I've heard that he played for Frank Reich at one point in his life. So I think I gave Carson Wentz an A for this trade. I gave the Colts a B+. I gave the Eagles a C-. Look, this was going to be a failure no matter what, because when you have a guy that you view as a franchise quarterback who was in the talks for the MVP conversation in 2017, who you haven't even started a 4-year, $128 million extension that you signed him to 2 years ago, and you trade him for anything less than 2 ones, that's a failure. And they were never going to get 2 ones for him. But then you look at like what teams have gotten for wide receivers. Like Stephon Diggs' deal was significantly better than Carson's, the return for him. So like, again, I think this is this is a hard one to gauge because it's so unprecedented. And look, Carson did not want to be here. He didn't need to vocalize it. It was very, very clear. That said, I thought he handled himself extremely well, and that's why this trade, extremely well from a public standpoint, this last couple of weeks. I think his agents did right by him. They kept quiet during this trade process. I was told the Eagles did not give him the opportunity to go seek a trade, and that he did not force this trade to Indy. But, I mean, it was clear. I mean, Indy was his top choice. They were a match made in football heaven for Carson Wentz. And, it paid off for him. He must have been doing a lot of, soul searching during this time and probably a lot of praying. And those prayers were answered. And I think this is the best move for both sides, even though it's ugly for both sides publicly. So, Chris, let's go from here. You wrote a column this morning about why Jalen Hurts should be the guy. Explain yourself.
Explains. Well, I think.
Well, no. Like, I don't mean to be like this is a stupid take, because like I agree. I wrote a column yesterday that I don't think the Eagles should take a QB in the top 6, and I will get to that after you inform us of your opinion.
Well, I think the main thing is this team has had so much turmoil at the quarterback position. I mean, they need to settle down for a little bit. They spent a 2nd-round pick on Hurts, and they can try to spin and say, no, we wanted to make him a gadget guy. They obviously saw something in him that they felt like he should be around on his team in case something like this happened with Wentz. And they really just have to give him a shot. I mean, there's a lot of comparison between Hurts and Roseman, whoever you talk to, when it comes to this stuff. They say that they like Russell Wilson, and the comparison with Jalen Hurts is Russell Wilson. Well, Russell Wilson had a slow start. It's almost eerily similar to the stats they had when both quarterbacks first started. So when you start to look at the comparisons, you start to see the way they're playing. You see the players that are returning next year or potentially going to return, especially I think you're going to have a better offensive line. I think the Eagles really just have to go ahead and start working on building and getting him weapons from around the outside to go ahead and help complement him. And I think that's going to be the big key for this here. And I think you saw that when he has time and when you go ahead and you give him the opportunity to go ahead and create plays, he's able to do it. I was a little, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little skeptical when he first got here, just seeing the way that he was playing mechanics, but he showed a lot of improvement from when he first arrived to the point we see him today in that last game. And I think when you look at the flexibility he brings you, knowing that he's on a rookie deal, or a second, and not just a first round draft pick, a second round draft pick rookie deal. So he's affordable. I think the last year of his contract was 3 years down the line. It's like 1.9 million. There's so much you can do with that cap space for not next year, but the year after that. There's so much flexibility it gives you that you can go ahead once you use this next year, which is going to be basically, I think personally, I think it's a throwaway year, but I think when you start to look at, you see what you have and you can use free agency, you can use the draft to go ahead and get the right pieces for this team. That gives you the ability to go ahead and rebuild this thing strongly, I think, instead of just having to do it hastily and just worrying about quarterback competition. I would say that you go out and you do get a veteran guy to go ahead and back him up, sort of similar to what the Eagles did with McCown and the way Foles was with Wentz. I think you go ahead and you get that. I think you look at different options like a Joe Flacco. Maybe he wants to come back to the area, play one more year before retiring. That would be great to go ahead and help guide Hurts along through the ride, because Marty Morningwig's no longer here to be his right-hand man to help him along. So if they do something similar to that, I'm all for it. But I really think if you go ahead and you give Hurts some time, he only played 4 games last year. If you go ahead and get some time and go ahead and give him some pieces around here, I think that the Eagles will be pleasantly surprised with what they have.
Yeah, I think a large reason for the Carson Wentz failure is the Eagles did all they could to surround Carson Wentz with talent. They just picked the wrong talent. And they really need to change the way they've done things over the past few years, because look, they don't have any salary cap. They can't go out and get veterans to fill out the offense, but I think they can draft guys who can grow with Jalen Hurts. And look, if you give Jalen Hurts this audition for a year, look, if he bombs, you're going to be picking in the top 5 or top 6 probably again next year. If he plays well, you feel good about it. Now you also have a future first round pick, for a potential first round pick from the Colts that you can use to trade up if you're kind of in that mid range as well. So I think the Eagles have protected themselves very, very well here for 2022. But I do think that 2021 has to be an evaluation process. This team is not very good on paper, and the Eagles are going to have to continue to gain draft picks through trades and the compensatory formula and move some mountains here. And I think the best way to do that is to build around the quarterback position, because if you're going to trade up and use a bunch of draft assets to get that next QB, you're setting him up for the same situation that Wentz was in last year. Plus, you probably have Jalen Hurts on the roster. And frankly, I don't think you can get more than a 4th round pick for Jalen Hurts at this point. I don't see where the market is for him. He played 4 games, like you said, and they, as much as he flashed, I don't think he increased his trade value or proved skeptics wrong who thought he was a 4th or 3rd round pick. So that said, look, you made this investment. He's cheap. Go for it. Sign a veteran free agent like Tyrod Taylor, who worked under Shane Steichen with the Chargers. He's at the point in his career where he knows he's a backup. He's not going to cause any waves. He's got a similar temperament to Hurts. He's won a lot of games in this league. And they have similar games, so you don't really have to adjust the offense for him. So where I come from is, look, I think this is Jalen Hurts' year. If you want to take a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round to give him competition, I'm a big believer in drafting a quarterback every other year. I think that's fine, given the present situation. But I do think Jalen Hurts can be a starter in this league. Do I think he's better on paper than Zach Wilson? No. Do I think he's better on paper than Justin Fields? No. Do I think that Justin Fields and Zach Wilson being put in this position over the next 2 years are going to be set up for failure? Yes. Jalen Hurts at least has his footing in Philadelphia. He's played some games in the NFL. He's already built chemistry with his wide receivers and his offensive line. He knows a lot of the guys in the building. He's familiar. He's set up to succeed. We don't know how COVID's going to affect this offseason this year, and now he's got an offseason under his belt and a season under his belt. And I just think, the Eagles did the right thing by getting a higher 2022 pick as opposed to a 2021 pick, because we don't have the combine this year. The pro days are going to be scattered. I just think the evaluation process is going to be a little bit more difficult. Plus, we don't know how the offseason program is going to go. So you might as well go with what you have, who you've already invested in. And frankly, if they move on from Jalen Hurts, this decision-making process from last year made no sense, and it caused even more drama than it needed to. So that's where I'm at.
And you know what? You brought up a great point as well, too, Wayne, to mention the quarterback draft class this year. Like you said, you don't have the ability to go ahead and really get to know a guy. You don't have those hotel meetings that they have as well, too. And you get to see, all you see is really throwing is a pro day in which and everybody knows that they're pretty much set up for the quarterbacks to succeed. And when you look at the options that you have possibly picking at 6, you look at a guy like Zach Wilson at BYU, the competition is not as great, so you can't really tell. Trey Lance, are you really going to go back to North Dakota State again to go ahead and see if you have your next franchise quarterback? And then you have Justin Fields as well, too. And there's questions around him. He's been hot and cold in certain big games. So it just makes more sense to go ahead and stick with Hurts when it comes to that. You know what you have in him, and you think he can only improve from where he can only improve. And he's got the pedigree, he's got the leadership qualities as well, too. So I think putting all that together, I definitely think he's the guy to lead this team.
Yeah, so I agree completely. I think that, this is a team that has a lot of work to do, and it's going to be a 3-year rebuild. That doesn't mean they can't make the playoffs next year. It doesn't mean they can't make the playoffs in 2022, but they're going to have the mindset of building for the long term, which is something they didn't do in 2016, which was kind of like a sharp remodeling. This is a true rebuild. It's a transition period. I think that the Eagles need to put in a lot of work. They need to really change their formula for success. They need to not make smartest guy in the room picks. They need to make picks for guys who can come in and contribute right away. This isn't about high ceilings. It's about low floors and also bona fide talent. And I think a guy like Jamar Chase at 6 would make a ton of sense. I think a guy like Patrick Surtain would make a lot of sense. I think they need to go cornerback or wide receiver early. Let's talk about the next shoe to drop on the trade market for the Eagles. I think that's Zac Ertz. What do you think they can get for Zac Ertz in a trade?
I think he has some value, but I don't think it's as much as it would. I think especially with a guy who he's had more productive years in the past, and I think he's getting older. Even though he had the fracture in his ankle, he didn't produce as well as he did this past season. If the Eagles somehow can get a 4th or a 3rd for him, or a compliment a pick, something like that, like a 3rd and a 5th or whatever, what have you, I think they should go ahead and take it, because from all intents and purposes, I think he knows that he's on his way out, and I think the Eagles know that. I think they have got Dallas Goedert as well too, and just the way that this whole thing's going right now, when you look at what he projects to go ahead and help out with, I think if you can get a 3 and a 5, I think you jump on it. I mean, and also looking back at the possibility of what the Eagles could be doing with their offense. I know, granted, that Sirianni's going to have his own take of things, but when you look at the way the Colts play offense, they play a lot of 11 personnel. And I think that the last 3 years, I think when I look back at it, it was 70% last year, 60 in the high 60s in 2019, and then I think another 70% in 2018. And that's not to say that 2 tight ends aren't important. They still use 12 personnel, and you still can use a tight end on a lot of those 3x1 sets. But the thing's going to be is, I just don't think that there's going to be a need for 2 high quality tight ends in this offense. And And the way they feel about, you had a younger version, Dallas Goedert, who's going to be around, I think, for a while. So if they can get anything of that around the 3 to 5, third round and a 5th round pick for him, the Eagles should jump and take it. How about you? You think he's going to have any significant value at all?
Yeah, I think a late 4th round pick is probably where I would put it. I did a projection today where I had him traded to the Green Bay Packers, who need weapons. The Eagles don't have a 4th round pick. It just kind of seems like it makes a lot of sense. But remember, Zac Ertz is on essentially a 1-year deal worth $8 million. And I think that's, and he's coming off the worst campaign of his career easily. So, and he's on the wrong side of 30, like you said. So, like, it's not going to be an easy sell, but they'll make a sell of it. And I think all sides will benefit from it once he departs. Anyway, guys, let's get into our final thoughts. Chris, where are you at overall entering this Carson Wentz-less offseason moving forward?
I think when you look at the overarching thing, I know that when it comes to Howie Roseman, everybody thinks he's untouchable in this organization. I think this is going to be the one he's going to have to hit. He's going to have to hit at least 60, 70% of these draft picks. If not, I think he's really gone. I think that there's no way. I think that if it appears apparent that a lot of these draft picks that they select this year are bad. I think they have like 4 picks now in the top 100. That's a lot of chances to go ahead and bring a lot of quality players into this organization to help you fill out a lot of different holes. When you look at the cornerback position, the wide receiver position, potentially another offensive lineman. When you look at those things, if it comes apparent that you have a Danny Watkins type draft year, I think that he's gone. And given that what it's more attractive for a general manager candidate in 2022, you'll have a lot more cap space. You'll have the additional first round, what looks like it's going to be an additional 1st round pick, and the one that they will already have in 2022. He's going to have to be able, if he wants to stay around for the future, he's going to have to prove this offseason that he's able to go ahead and rebuild and turn things around and appear to have a plan that looks like it will work in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, Howie deserves a lot of criticism. I think Jeffrey Lurie deserves a lot of criticism. I think Carson Wentz deserves a lot of criticism. I think Doug Peterson deserves a lot of criticism. This is going to be quite a year. And what I will say is this. I think for the last month, no one's cared that Nick Sirianni is the Eagles head coach. Everything's been focused on Carson Wentz. But what I will say is this. Everyone I've talked to in the league respects Nick Sirianni's approach to coaching. He's been praised by defensive players on the Colts. He's been praised by offensive players on the Colts. He's going to be a guy that is going to be at least interesting to watch. I'm a big fan of covering rebuilds because I enjoy the draft process. And Chris and I will have a lot of draft coverage coming up. So I hope you guys stick with us. Make sure you sign up for Eagles Extra. That's NJ.com/text. It's 2 weeks free. You can come and check out all of our exclusive content, before you join for real. And we'd love to have you. And remember, we do weekly hour-long Q&As plus insider analysis, breaking news before it hits Twitter, all that type of stuff. Remember, you can also download the No Huddle Show podcast wherever podcasts are available. For Chris, I'm Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
Acast powers some of the world's best podcasts. Here's a show we recommend.
I'm Teresa Caputo, and I am dying to tell you about my new podcast, Hey Spirit. Most of you might know me as the Long Island Medium. Why do people even call me that? Well, I talk to the dead.
Oh, he is funny as He literally just said to Teresa, he's a better husband because of me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Through this podcast, I'm going to connect guests with the souls of their departed loved ones and give them the peace that they've been searching for. I got to catch up with my friend, Kim Kardashian West.
Every brunch, we have this Armenian bishi that totally brings our dad into the mix.
Today, I had the pleasure of sharing my gift with Nathan Lane. I am so super excited for you guys to hear and be a part of Hey Spirit. Please subscribe wherever you listen.
Acast
recommends.